Welcome to a fresh take where we look at things from a different perspective. Don't forget, if you like the video, go ahead and do so. And if you'd like to subscribe to our channel, also press subscribe. This morning, we're talking about something which I suppose has been in the offing for a while. And for that particular discussion, I would like to welcome to our show, Nontsikelelo Mazwai, as I like to call her by her full name. And Ntsiki, good morning and welcome to a fresh take.
Hi, sis Vanessa, unjani?
Ngiyaphila, dear. It's good to see you.
It's good to see you.
Yeah.
Beauty. I'm looking at your beauty here, admiring.
Oh, girl, you're so sweet. So I know you recently just moved to the farm. How's that going?
Oh, so peaceful. Like, it's a bit chilly this morning, but the fireplace is going. You know, just farm lifestyle things, guys. And I'm busy writing. So it's lovely, actually.
I would love that life right now. I would love that
Oh,
life. But anyway.
So nice. Ooh.
So let's get to the topic today, because it's when I thought about all the people that I could possibly have this discussion with, you were the first one that popped into my head, because the premise of this discussion is really around the fact that we look at television, media, and what it offers us. And in certain spaces, and also growing up, I mean, we watched other races before we actually had a voice in media. And they always shone a positive light on their lives. They shone a positive light on their offering. They shone a positive light on everything that their culture was about. We come along and we have a voice in the media space. And then all of a sudden, it seems like we don't really know what to do with that. Would you agree?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, to this day, I don't think Black people even know Guti. There are poor white people and poor communities, and like white people because they don't show that side of themselves, you know? So I think you're absolutely correct in saying that we have to introspect in how we are portraying ourselves in the media space. But then also at the same time, we have to recognize that our media, mainstream media space, was traditionally a propaganda tool for apartheid. So it was controlled by white people and not by us. So it's understandable that they would put their own culture on a higher pedestal than our own. So there is also an issue of how come we don't have access into the media space and media space ownership? When we think of Black ownership in media spaces, even when we think of, let's say, Moja Love is still on a white platform called DSTV, controlled by Afrikaans people. So it's actually not a Black, 100% Black controlled vehicle. Even when you think of maybe Power FM, and you look at his funders, Rupert, and then you realize that there's never going to be a radical Black voice coming out of Power FM because they always have to toe the line somewhere. So for me, it's about the ownership of the media space and how come we're not occupying it, and how come we're not getting licenses, and how come even the SABC, why would it be so dominated by white voices when we are in a Black dominated country? You know, I look at stations like SAFM and I'm like, all the main primetime shows are white voices, but that's not reflective of our country. So for me, it's about the system.
You know, the other part of that, other than who owns the media space, is us, the consumer of whatever is being put out. Why do you think that we find it so entertaining? I mean, the channel that you spoke of, we're all tuning in to watch kind of the very worst of us. We're tuning in every night, every day, all day long. Why are we so drawn to that mess?
I think also we're drawn to ourselves. It's not that we're drawn to the mess necessarily. I feel that we are finally, like you said, it's a new thing for us to even have Black representation on TV. So we're excited still about the fact that we are on TV and we're seeing mirrors of ourselves. I don't think we've given ourselves an opportunity to start playing with the more positive content and stop ridiculing ourselves, because it's also an issue of Black consciousness and what we're learning in the mainstream on how to feel about ourselves. So you might find that we're still looking at ourselves from a white point of view, especially since we go to white schools that train us to kind of distance ourselves from our Blackness. So I think that there's a lot of work that Abantu Abamnyama have to do internally to reverse some of the psychological things that have affected how we think and how we view ourselves. You know, if you know that systematically for hundreds of years you were put down, you need to recognize that systematically for the next 500 years, you're going to have to put yourself up and prop yourself up so that you can find that balance again. So I just feel as if we're not, it's almost like we're not ready. We're not ready to do the hard work. I mean, there's the debate that keeps coming up with the hair, and people are saying, no, it's my choice. And I'm like, why would you choose to wear some other race's hair? Don't think it's time for you to unpack why you feel that way, and then starting putting energy in your own hair so that you feel that pride that's missing. So for me, yeah, it's about creating content that's going to balance the damage that has been done to the Black psyche.
So on that point, I've spoken to quite a few people about, why don't we have better content? And a lot of people come back and they say, because it's boring. I don't want to watch somebody achieving and, doing well and earning degrees. And it's really like blah. But, to watch people fighting in the street or whatever that is going on in the media, you watch the show, so you know what's out there. Why is it boring?
I don't know.
Do we like sensationalism?
Which is this positive, boring content that we've had? Like, a lot of our, like, the most interesting content we could have is Black consciousness content, talking about Black history and Black heroes, but we're not given that platform because the platforms are not controlled by us. So the minute you want to celebrate your Blackness, the white people accuse you of being racist. So there's we have to erase ourselves. And I just feel as if, no, we actually haven't given ourselves the opportunity, because I remember growing up, there were shows like, do you remember the Wonder Years? Kevin Arnold. Yeah, and there were like family shows that portrayed white culture where you could relate. We've never had anything like that. We've never had anything like that. Everything has some weird, there's no going into the relationships of the people in the township. It's always about the township, and the drama is in the surrounding, but it's never in just the human experiences that you have in the home with the grandmother and the children, and the feeling, the teenager going through the emotions, so we've never had that option. Like, if all our writers are put under pressure to show the darkness of Blackness. So again, I don't think it's boring.
And it's also quite scary, because even for the kids, there's no like Superman or a superhero of any kind. There's just like, what is there for the kids to look up to that looks like them?
Exactly.
So we've got a long way to go.
When we speak of radical economic transformation and just transformation generally, we're talking about issues like that, where we've got too many examples of Cinderella, Snow White, Beauty and the Beast, and we've got none of our own heroes. And it's a problem. And it's actually racist for white people not to realize that that's a problem.
Where do you think the change will come from? If we had to have an ideal situation, where would we start?
It's so funny, because I was having this conversation with someone and saying that if we're not going to be ourselves, who is? who's going to be us? Because we're chasing everybody else. So for me, ideally, is to go back to African principles, you know. The main thing for me that was broken down was the African family, and that was the base of African culture. So I think we need to go back to, a lot of us are crying about our broken families. I think that's something we need to address. um, we're bleeding and it's sore, and it's not supposed to be like that, because we have a history of families living on one plot, and then everyone has got their own ronda, and the children are all raised by the village. You know, so just going back to our own values, our own rituals, amasiko ethu, you know, because we had rites of passages that taught boys how to be men. Um, our education systems were in the home and teaching about livelihood, you know, how to stay alive, uh, taking care of the home and making sure that the land is nourished. So some of the natural basics that we lived on in the past as ancient Africans are the values that we've lost that actually made our lives much nicer. So I think it is about going back to emakaya, you know, realizing now with internet that you can be in the farms and still continue with your work and still continue and still be in the street corner with each other, but it's just online. So I just think that people need to let go of that fear of going back to Makaya, and then developing from there and developing our spaces there, because land is space. And when your mind has space to think, you're even more productive. This thing of us being on top of each other, I think lockdown, on some level, I hope, has taught us that it's okay to actually go back to the farms and work from there and visit Joburg and not make Joburg our home.
Ubani uzoqala, who is going to set this movement on fire?
Oh, I'm
Because you
already in
know how it
Mpumalanga,
is.
you guys. I've started. I'm on the farms in Mpumalanga. We join me, please? You know, it
But
is very
it's
scary.
generations away from actually having an impact, because, like you said, it's so deeply rooted. And so, like
Mm,
you've started, you're out there, you've made the
mm,
decision for yourself. A lot of
mm.
people will say they can't because obviously financially they need to actually get out of their houses
Yeah,
and go earn money.
yeah,
But the sad thing is, the more that continues, the more we perpetuate kind of what has already begun. So I think for me,
yeah.
that's really something that I think a lot of people need to just maybe think around,
But
because
it also
it,
comes down to, okay, then if Awuye Makaya, then how are you going to bring Amakaya to you? Now we're finding a new trend. It's better for you guys in KZN, but here, the black children don't know how to speak their mother tongue. You know, it's basic things like that where people have compromised our identity, and then it gets painful because it's their children, and people are very sensitive about their children. But it's also like, hey guys, this is actually kind of a big deal. It's a small thing for you and your family, but it's a big thing in terms of our generation as Black people, and how we're going to create a new Black people who can't speak Isintu. That's damn scary, like, you know? So little things like that, like parents putting pressure on themselves to make sure that they leave English, 18. They make sure that they teach um, abantwana babo Isintu, you know? You just there's this balance you need to make sure that you keep striking with your kids. Make sure that holiday time they go to Eslalin or they go to Elokshin, so that we retain who we are. Otherwise, like we can see already, the mess that is already is just gonna get more worse. For me, the answer is going back to who we are. I think that a lot of our solutions were in there, even with this whole COVID thing. Um, you know, the world keeps wondering why were we not as affected as badly, and I'm like, yo, guys, when we heard, we went from Sonyane and we started burning our pepper, and we were like, all right, let's go, you know? So just that enlightenment of our traditional and our indigenous knowledge systems are far greater, and they are from the well from which the rest of the world actually drinks. And we need to recognize that and stop following the world.
So there's two things that come to mind for me, Ntsiki. First of all, I'm going to ask both questions at the same time. One is sometimes freedom a problem because people are saying, you know, like you talked about the kids not being able to speak their mother tongue. You've raised the hair issue, and people are like, well, it's my choice. You know, you're free. I can do whatever I like. That's the first part of it. But also the second part of it is also this thing of supporting each other. Yeah, we are so bad at that. You know, it's MC Hammer, actually, of all the people. MC Hammer had a lyric, or had lyrics in his one of his raps where he said that black people, and he was talking about in America, are like crabs in a basket. We always, no one lets anyone out. So those things as well have huge impact on how we view each other as people. What's that? Why? How can we even start to fix that as well?
It's because we've made it a bad thing to be black. So the minute you start seeing somebody getting out of their blackness, so that's why it is an internal journey to make blackness greatness, so that you're cool with being with the black people, because you know, oh my God, we got the vibe, we got the melanin. So it is mainly about our self-esteem, because a lot of white supremacy is existing because of our humbleness and our, you know, and as much as it's a beautiful thing to be humble,
it's enabling, but it's enabling.
It's enabling, exactly. So I think that, and then what was the question just before, Kana? The first part of your question was
too much
about
freedom. Is sometimes freedom too much?
Oh, choice. You know, we also have to recognize that there is such a thing as a bad choice. If you decide to take drugs, that's a bad choice. If you decide to, that's a bad choice, you know? So it could be a bad choice that you're wearing hair that is making you have a receding hairline, and that is making you miserable and making you actually not like yourself when you don't have that hair. It's actually quite a bad choice, you know? So we need to own that. Like, you know, yeah, there are such things as poor choices. We need to own the fact that there are such things.
All right, so in closing, Ntsiki, the final question is, what is your fresh take about Black people in the media space right now?
I think that it is their responsibility to now start pushing the agenda of who we actually are. Because when you're in Rome, you do as the Romans. And if we as Black people are not being clear about who we are and how we're going to do this, we're confusing the whites as well. So we need to own ourselves and walk tall so that they can identify this is what's up. Right now, that self-esteem thing and that division thing and the Black people wanting to please the white people, it's not working for us. Black people need to own themselves and own who they are and step at the table as themselves. At the moment, we're the only race in the world that's showing up at the table in costume while everybody else shows up as themselves.
On that note, thank you very much, Nontsikelelo Mazwai, for joining us today. Thank you.
Thank you, Vanessa.